Welcome back to Court TV Live. Four-time widower Thomas Randolph back in court today for the murder of his sixth wife, Sharon, and his alleged handyman turned hitman, Michael Miller. A walkthrough with police following the incident shows Randolph reenacting with gusto the shooting. But inconsistencies in this statement that he led police on, well, that's what triggered the investigation and then eventually his arrest. They believe he concocted the whole thing and groomed his handyman into a killer and then killed the handyman, Mr. Miller. Well, the state called several of Michael Miller's family members to the stand yesterday, including his aunt, who told the jury that she saw him leave with a gun after receiving a message from Randolph.
Do you recall if Mr. Randolph ever left Michael a message about a gun?
Yes, he did.
What was the nature of the message?
He told me, he said for Michael need to bring his gun back home.
Okay.
Back to him.
And were you aware of whether or not Michael heard that message?
I know he didn't hear that message.
Okay. Do you know if Michael ever took steps to return a gun?
I know that my husband told him he had to take it back out of...
What her husband said.
I had to take it out of our house.
Objections to it.
Okay, I'll rephrase.
Okay, just trying that comment will be stricken on record, Ms. Berkeley.
Okay. Did you ever, not what they said, but did you ever see Michael or your husband leave the house after that message?
I saw Michael.
Michael leave?
Yes.
Okay, and was that with a gun?
Yes.
Still with us in studio, criminal defense attorney, former federal prosecutor Michael Sterling. The case against Mr. Randolph is a much different one than the first time around because you don't have the prior bad acts. In the first case was a slam dunk because you had this guy come up and testify and say, oh, he tried to hire me to kill his other wife. They don't have any of that here. So now you have just a weird guy with a weird story. Is it enough to get a conviction, do you think?
Well, I think that's what the prosecution is trying to tie together, right? They're trying to say, look, there's all of this evidence that, one, he groomed his handyman, he had this relationship with this handyman, and there's significant evidence that when he was discussing things with his handyman, he was telling him about bringing a gun, bringing a weapon. So this wasn't some random act of robbery or violence or this handyman randomly breaking into a house he was working on. This was a concerted effort, a relationship, a conspiracy between this widower and the handyman to go after his wife. And then he went after the handyman to try to cover it up to make it look like self-defense. But by showing the relationship between him and the handyman, showing the weapon, there's a weapon that's tied into this relationship. The prosecution is trying their best to weave this story together.
It's difficult to believe that anyone would be capable of engineering such a sinister scheme unless you know that this is his sixth wife and he's suspected in 4 of their deaths. Then it's like, oh, wow, this guy's off the charts. How do you get that? I mean, they're trying their best to get that conveyed to the jury without bringing up the other things. And they're letting him do it, especially with that walkthrough where he's so excited to tell the investigators how it happened. Boom, 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 boom. This is big, is it not, for the state, just to play this video as much as they can?
Yeah, and sometimes you don't want to do that because you don't want the defendant to be able to tell his story of self-defense without taking a stand and, you know, cross-examination happening. So sometimes you're a little weary about this, but in this case, where there's so many inconsistencies in his story, his willingness and openness to tell this story to television cameras, to police officers, and then there's all of these inconsistencies in the story, it belies his credibility. And then the jury may wonder, even though they're not supposed to, why isn't he taking a witness stand if he doesn't take the witness stand? Right. Especially since he was so apt to tell his story to so many other people.
Well, yeah, and he'll probably want to, but he's the last guy you want up there, right?
Right, and if he opens the door, right, if he does anything to open the door to, although these bad acts have been excluded from evidence based on the case being overturned, he can still say something that opens the door. And so that's not a chance criminal defense attorneys necessarily want to take, because if he opens the door for those other bad acts to come in, and it's over.
Yeah, and he's a wingnut that might just open the door unintentionally. Let's hear more from the Miller family. Vida Miller was Michael's aunt, and she basically told the jury that from her standpoint, Mike was done with this guy, that this guy was a weirdo, and Mike was starting to figure it out. Take a listen.
When Mike told you that he was going to have nothing else to do with Mr. Randolph, when was that in relation to the murder?
That was when I told him he received a phone call from Randolph saying that,
Okay, don't tell us what Mr. Randolph said.
well,
Yes, if we could just get a foundation. She's asking for a date, Your Honor.
well, he received a phone call from Mr. Randolph. And Mr. Randolph was very upset. And he was fussing in the phone about, I don't know how he can have a girlfriend when he can't afford cigarettes. And I could either, it was. Then after that phone call, I talked to Mike. And Mike said, well, I'm not having anything else to do with him.
And I appreciate that. And I'm sorry if I wasn't clear with my question, but was that like a week before the murder, or a day, or 3 days, or
No, a week before.
a week before? Okay.
Opening statements, the defense got up and really went after Miller, basically calling him a career criminal, and just did the best they could to turn him into the villain here, because they need to get Randolph off. How important was it for the state to bring in family member after family member to humanize this other victim?
Critically important, because he's not there to speak for himself. So if the only thing you know about him, right, as a juror is that he's a career criminal, then you start to believe, well, he could have done this. He could have broken into the home, and this man was simply defending his home, defending his wife. So the defense's job is to make him seem like he was defending his home and his wife from this random break-in from his handyman who was taking advantage of him. But by bringing in these family members to humanize him, to know that he's a real person, to know that he had real feelings, that he had loved ones, people who cared about him, and that he was basically done with Mr. Randolph, prior to this incident because of how Mr. Randolph was behaving. I think that cuts, some of that defense away.
Yeah, absolutely, and we'll see this thing play out. We're expecting the state to wrap its case in chief probably next week, as early as today, and then the defense does have a few witnesses that they plan to put on, and so this case will probably wind down Tuesday, Wednesday of next week, and we'll see what happens, because it's not a slam dunk like it was the first time around.